welcome to the Peachy Sunflower. I'm Kat, your host, and today I am joined by Mr. Keith. And actually, Keith is the one that got me into podcasting, so this is going to be fun because, one, you're a pro. So I'm going to put that off right now, guys. He is a pro. I'm going to learn from him. And on my podcast, you could do it a little bit different with your podcast, but I'm going to have you guys talk. You're going to talk about your podcast. But with mine, I'm having the guests bring on a drink. Marie and I like wine, so we did wine.
Okay.
So I'm going to have you tell us what you're going to have me try, which you guys... My husband hasn't even got me to try whiskey, so the fact that Keith is, I think Chris is about to be real jealous.
Yeah, but he'll be like, well, if she likes it, hopefully.
I don't know.
You
know what happened last time I did whiskey? I think you were around. Shark night in college, and I'm the one who broke out all in hives.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we'll find out.
Nice.
We're going to see. It's fine.
I think it'll be all right.
I think
We'll
it'll be
just
good.
give you a little try.
Yeah.
So,
But if I like it, then I'm just going to chuck it.
yeah, there you go. Your husband and I just got back not that long ago from touring Jack Daniel's distillery. So we've been on a Jack kick, and I really like this Gentleman Jack. It's super smooth, a lot smoother than just the old number 7. So this is actually a good one for you to try.
Okay.
And I'm going to have you do it on the rock. So I'm going to pour it, and I'm going to have you let that just kind of sit in there for a minute. I won't give you that
Sit in
much.
there for a minute. Okay.
And then just let it get nice and cold, and that way you don't get that hard bite.
Now, is this the same stuff that you have your business logo on?
Yes.
Okay, so just to give you a heads up, my husband got a lot of crap for not doing what you did with your bottle, because I was like, why didn't you put like Jessmore on there and the date or something? And he goes, I didn't even think of that. I'm like, well, dude.
It was $9
It was
to have you as strong.
So now he's like, I need to go back. I'm like, well, absolutely go back. Yes. So
I'd go back for sure.
all right, tell me about this whiskey.
Well, it's just it's their Gentleman Jack. So the difference between this and their main number 7 Jack is this is mellowed more. So what the regular number 7 Jack, they have it go through like this charcoal stuff for like, it's like 14-foot thing that it has to go all the way down, and that's Jack number 7. With this, they actually have it go down the charcoal even more, so a second time, not the full 14 feet or whatever it is. It's a smaller silo, but it goes down, so it's purified more than the regular Jack number 7. So it's going to be a little smoother than the number 7 Jack.
Now, is this the charcoal, like the charcoal you guys are talking about? Is that the same stuff that I think Hunter, you mentioned, or Chris, I can't remember, they push into pellets to sell other people for grilling?
Yeah.
Okay.
So after, because they can only use that charcoal for the process so long, and they want to be self-sufficient, so they take that old charcoal and then they partner it up with, I think, Kingsford, and then they sell it. So if you ever see Jack Daniel's Kingsford, that's actually the stuff that this has gone through to purify, to reduce it from like 170 proof to like 80 proof or whatever they want to do.
So guys, if you're listening and you're not watching, my facials do not hide.
It's so good.
I know, but working for Disney, I can hide my facials with like interacting with guests, but when it comes to like me trying something, I am like full blown. You're gonna see if I like it or not. So let's see here.
I will tell you, it's an acquired taste. Like, I didn't like whiskey at all for the longest time.
Oh God,
it's an acquired taste.
that tastes like pure rubbing alcohol to me. Well, no, actually, now that it's sitting,
Getting that little bit of
oh, now it's like
charred flavor.
Yes. So I can handle it after you like drink it and it gets on your tongue for a little bit. When you take it in, it doesn't taste right. But then after it sits, I can see why you guys would like it. But on me, it has to sit for a little bit.
So with the number 7 Jack, you get a little bit more of that charcoal flavored, and it's darker. This is a lot smoother.
I don't know if I could drink it like you and Chris do, though.
Well,
it's not horrible. And I could probably drink it. And doesn't it get mixed into like an old fashioned with other stuff? Like if it had
you could
Sprite or something on top of it, I think I'd be fine. But drinking it straight out like you guys,
if you're
I
gonna
don't think I can
mix
do
it, I would go with just the number 7 Jack, because this is more. I mean, you could mix this; it's more expensive.
Okay.
Like I said, it's an acquired taste. I did not like whiskey on the rocks for the longest time. I had to mix it with Sprite, and then I kind of ventured it took me a long time to acquire this taste. So it's not like
I'm going to sound like Alan when I say this. I'm a rum person.
Yeah.
I'm being honest. So I like rum. I will drink rum. Chris thinks it's disgusting. He goes, why do you just drink rum? And I mix rum with other drinks and then I'll drink my wine. But I mean, I could see why you guys like it though. Like it's not, I don't want to throw it up, which is a good thing. But I also don't think I would drink it every minute. Like,
well, it'll take you a while. You'll get there.
I'll get there.
I mean, your husband has a crap ton of bottles, so it's not like you're gonna.
So did he tell you when he was gone that I redid his bar?
No.
Did he ever send you the photo?
I don't think so.
So when I knew you guys were going on, like, I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you mentioned in your podcast that I suggested the guys trip because I think you mentioned that, which we'll talk about your podcast one minute, but like I suggest the guys trip because Chris is going through his master's program and that thing is just beating him brutal. Also, too, I got to go on a girls' trip in January. And so I kind of was like, hey, if I sent you on a guys' trip, can I go on another girls' trip? Because my best friend wanted me back down there. And it was also, too, I'm going to have to send him on another guys' trip, heads up, because my best friend from Maryland just sent me a text. And I asked her if she needed anything. She's going through some stuff, very medical stuff I don't want to share because that's her business. But asked if she needed anything. And she said, anyway, you could visit. So I kind of, when she asked, I don't hesitate because she never asks for anything. So I'll have to send him on another guy's trip.
Yeah, I was going to say, so since you get 2 girls' trips, do we get another guy's trip?
Yes, absolutely. So people that I meet, they're like, oh, aren't you going to be sad with Chris gone? I'm like, oh, no. So fun fact, as you know, Chris was in the military. I don't want to say I did extravagantly well with him gone, but I just got used to it. You kind of form a pattern of just getting used to things of when someone's gone. And yeah,
Did you have kids though when he was gone?
No.
So that probably made it a little easier.
Actually, I'm going to be honest. I think it was easier when he went on that guy's trip. I think having the kids was actually easier than when I was by myself with the 2 dogs. Perla and Gus were very well-mannered and well-behaved compared to the 2 dogs we have now. I'm sure Chris has said horror stories about Chip and Minnie because they are very difficult compared to Perla and Gus. Perla and Gus were easily trained. Perla's only bad habit was she would knock down the trash can. She could open the trash can with her mouth. Gus's bad habit was he would just bark for like the first month. Anywhere new he went, he would just bark for no reason. Then it stopped. So they were really well behaved. I mean, I wish they lived longer, but sadly, Perla passed at 8 from cancer. Gus passed in 2020, which they never figured out what from. But looking back, the vet has said it's probably COVID related, which was sad. But the 2 dogs we have now are, Chip is more well behaved than Minnie, but man, no, it was actually easier this time around because I had Mason and Ryder to kind of keep me occupied and not thinking about stuff.
Gotcha.
And so when Chris called, he was like, you're the only wife that hasn't checked in or texted or called. And I'm like, well, first of all, you were in the military. I wasn't allowed to do that when you were in the military. And secondly, don't take this wrong, but I kind of haven't noticed how long it's been.
Marie
didn't text either.
No, Marie.
So I think he was talking about like the other ones because Marie and I like were texting and I'm like, neither of us have checked in. I think they're fine.
Yeah.
We get our space on the bed. Marie and I do not care. We're like so chill about it. We're like, go, bye.
Yeah, and the only people that were calling their wives were Alan, and because he has kids too, and Hunter.
And Hunter's wife's pregnant, so yes. I 100% understand all that.
I don't think I physically talked to Marie the whole time. Like we sent a couple texts back and forth.
Yeah,
but that was it.
Well, Chris called me only because he was like, I haven't heard from you, and I need to let you know that I did the IV. Which
he was hurting that day.
I'm sure he was. He needed it though. He needed to blow off the steam. But you guys covering your podcast. So I want you to talk about your podcast, how it got started, what you guys talk about on there. And then I guess we can touch on then how I got obsessed with now wanting my own podcast because it's all your fault.
Hey, it's fun.
Which is fine.
So I have a YouTube channel. I got 2 now.
I know.
And the second one is a result of me getting into the whole production side. I had a first one, kind of firearms related, but then my neighbor and I are always in the garage, not so much anymore that his wife's pregnant, but we were always out there talking just a bunch of guy stuff. And, podcasts with 2020 became super popular. So everybody and their mothers has a podcast, and a lot of them are just talking about whatever. And I'm like, to get this YouTube channel, kind of some more videos out there and stuff, why don't we just start a podcast? And just whatever we talk about in the garage, we'll just bring on there. And so we just ended up doing that. I had to do a little bit of research on like what you need and what exactly to do. And it's a learning curve. So if you watch our first one, it's a lot different than the last, we're on 31 now.
Yeah, Chris said it was 31.
Yeah.
I was impressed. I was like, man, that's like going. Whereas when I started mine, I was like, Keith, how do I even start this? Where do I go to register? Like, how am I starting this? And we should mention, when I'm recording now, I'm at your house using your amazing equipment.
Yep. This is our setup.
Compared to when Chris and I are doing it, we're in our kitchen, no lighting. We're with the honeybee, which
Worker bee.
Worker bee. Okay, see, I call it the honeybee just because that came in that cool box. But funny story, Keith was critiquing or doing a video on it, I think.
I did.
About the worker bee. Mm-hmm. And I was telling Chris, I'm like, I want that for my podcast. I kept saying, I'm like, I really want that for my podcast. Go order it. Can we order it? Like, because we were looking at microphones to order. We had the one that hooked up into the computer, and he was using it a lot for school.
He had a Blue Yeti.
A Blue, yeah. Okay, so I didn't know what it was. But I was like, Chris, can we get that? Like, that looks like something that would fit with the Peachy Sunflower, which also, we'll have to talk about how I came up with that name, because I technically kind of didn't. Keith really helped with it. But we were just, and as you know, my husband's very impatient and decided he had to buy the worker bee off you instead of us ordering it on Amazon, which is fine. It's fine because we got to record quicker than if we would have waited on Amazon. But I just laughed because he was like trying to understand all this podcast stuff. And he's like, Kat, you're going to have to get Keith to come over here. I'm not understanding this. I don't know how to use this besides recording, what mics we should be doing. And I'm like, okay, well, then we'll get Keith over here. So props to you and Chris. You both have knocked out my intro. You have taught me how to use the general little box that I think that's the box you guys took on the trip, right?
Yeah, that Zoom P4.
Yeah, I don't have this cool thing.
This thing's awesome.
I know. I'm going to get so excited. And I told Chris, I said, if I get to like episode 15 and I'm loving this, like, can we? And he's like, yeah, we can upgrade.
Out of anything in this production thing, this has been the most best piece of equipment I've purchased.
Okay, but I'm going to have to ask. So Apple computer, is that your suggestion though for people doing podcast, or can you go a different route?
Oh, you can use a Windows computer. I just prefer, because like my phone's Apple, my watch, everything's
absolutely.
Apple, and the program that we're actually recording this in is an Ecamm Live, and that makes it to where we don't have to do any editing. So the video, the audio are all going into Ecamm Live. Okay. So then with that, it's a Mac only software. Okay. So if you want an easy process and use Ecamm Live, you have to have a Mac. But to start out with, you can use whatever the hell you want. So,
for example, when you guys are doing, which we didn't mention in your podcast, so if anybody's interested of just, that sounds silly to say because Marie has been on there, but like guy-related topics, I'm not saying it's all guy-related because there's girls that are interested in that stuff because I am. Okay. Anyone can listen to it, but talk about, one, what your name for your podcast is, two, like what you guys talk about on there, and three, how it works. Because if they would watch it on YouTube compared when they're going to watch mine and they're just seeing the one thing, you have a cool system that does other things. So I want you to talk about that as people are thinking about starting a podcast. Like, you've helped me start it and start small, but now because I watch yours, I know what I could evolve to.
Right. And it's like, you don't need all this to start off.
No.
You just, I didn't have, if you watch our first few episodes, you just see, I get more and more stuff as we get into it. But our podcast is called the Workbench After Hours Podcast. And mainly because we named it that because Hunter and I were always sitting around the workbenches I have in the garage just talking about stuff. I'm like, trying to come up with a name is very difficult.
Yeah.
And stuff. But that's what we came up with. And we So our intro is that we talk about the firearms community, because that's on my gun channel, and then shop talk, so anything that you talk about your guys with, and then our everyday life experiences. And we've structured it to where we have a whiskey of the week, and that's what we start off with. And, you know, we try it, talk about it for a little while, and then if it's just the three of us, there's two co-hosts, Hunter and Chris, and we'll talk about, I'll pick a gun topic of the week and talk about that, and then we just kind of go into whatever. We used to structure, like, have a list of things. Now we just kind of like, all right, let's talk about this week, and we'll have guests on, and then whatever that guest comes on, we'll ask them questions of what their experience with guns and everything, and then have them talk about the whiskey, and just the rest of it's just kind of just BSing the whole time.
Yeah. Well, and I think what I've appreciated about your guys' work, like your Workbench After Hours podcast is, and this is coming from somebody, because I told Chris on our podcast, like, you're not allowed to talk about what you do on your podcast, which is fine, because I want to talk to you about it, is I have been getting the education that I feel I was lacking on certain subjects, because I had no idea. Because as you know, in our household, Chris is, he has guns. Actually, a lot of people didn't know that. So funny story. I'm not going to call out the friend's name, but I'm going to just tell you because you'll understand this. We had a friend that did not know that we had arms in our house. They thought that we were completely against it, that we would never do anything like that. And you guys, you would look at me and assume, there's a lot of things people look at me and are like, assume like, nope, she's not going to have firearms in her house. I do have firearms in my house. I'm actually the wife that said, hey, go buy a safe. Like, I want you to have a safe. I support Chris's interest. My only thing that I harp on is, like, please be educated about it. Teach me about it. Teach our kids about it, so that an accident does not happen, that I'm aware of what's in our home and what's going on and why you like it. Because I, at first, was assuming everybody that liked that, which is funny because you have transferred my father's gun, so you know my background. You would think that I'd be like all gung ho, whereas I'm very like middle of the lane. I could never choose one side or the other. I am, okay, I understand why you have it, but there's another part of me that's like, I don't get it. Why in the heck do you need that? And so that's what I appreciate about your podcast, is that you're educating a huge majority of people. So it can be for people that don't agree with it at all, or people that know tons about it, or for people like me that are in the middle and are like, I have no idea. So when you ask your different guests, like, what did you do in like the guns community this week, where I could answer not a darn thing because I don't understand besides listening to your podcast.
Right.
Or I could be like, well, Chris said he wanted this, but you know, I'm a mean wife and is the wife that says you can get a new boat, but you can't get a new whatever. Which I love that you give him credit about that. Because now that people are listening to mine, I did tell Chris that he could have a new boat, trade in his old boat, get a new boat. I couldn't stand his old boat. There was no room on it. It kept breaking. It was really upsetting me because there was just no space. You couldn't get on it. Like, the boys couldn't handle being on there because there was just no space to move.
I never got to go on it.
Because it was always broken. When we got on there, it broke on us. I had to get him to take me back with Ryder while Mason stayed on there. It broke down when Mason was on there, and luckily my dad was with them. So it was just one of those consistent things where I'm like, dude, I told you to get a brand new boat, but he did not get a brand new boat. He sold his boat, so you'll probably never get on one. You're now going to have to ask other friends to get on their boat.
I give him crap on the podcast.
Yes, I know. I hear and I love it. I'm like, haha, keep giving it to him because he's not going to.
One thing I do like about our podcast is, like you mentioned, we're not political in any way or whatever.
Yes,
we're trying to keep it like, we trying to educate people about fire, because everybody hears everything one way from the news, and that's fine. If you don't like guns, we don't care. You know, it's not your thing. Don't listen to it or whatever. But we want to get the information out that to educate people. And I have other YouTube videos on that channel where I show you how to properly like clean a gun, or how to take it apart, put it back together. You know, it's a couple gun reviews. So I'm not one of those channels to where it's like, oh, guns are like, everybody has to have a gun, and if you don't like them, screw you. No, it's like, hey, I know there's people that don't like it, but a lot of the people don't know the proper way to handle them. So yeah, they're terrified at first. And that's what happened with my wife and I, is when we first started dating, I was obviously into firearms and she wasn't. So the way we got around that is she took a ladies only firearm class, and then she was taught how to properly handle them safely, and now she has her own gun and likes to shoot. So it's just getting people educated, because and that's why we ask each guest is, how did you get into guns, or what's your background? Everybody has a different story on what their experience is.
And since you've been helping me set up my podcast, because you're always like, well, what is your topic? And I've always said, I want to go off the people's expertise. So I wanted to bring up what your expertise, not only the podcast stuff that you're great at, but like you have that expertise in the firearms community because you have your own business. But I wanted to call out that I am anti-political, as you know. Like, you guys, it's funny. People are like, you vote that way, you vote that way. And I'm like, nope, I don't. And funny story, 100% can say this with confidence. There is 2 people, and this doesn't include my husband, that actually know how I voted. And it's my dad and my brother. And the reason for that is because they've known me for so long. They know how I am. And because I'm so anti-political, and Marie and I discussed it, I don't like conflict, as you know.
Right.
I shy away from it unless you really piss me off. And Keith has been blessed with actually seeing Kat really mad, really, really mad. I don't want to say it's a blessing because it's probably scary, because you're like, well, she's probably usually not like that.
Have you seen my wife mad? That's scary too.
But I haven't. You know what? I haven't seen Marie
in
a full blowout.
No, you haven't.
I have seen her defend people and confront people, but I have not seen her blow out.
Oh, it's not.
And I think I've only seen you in college. You got mad one time. So I've got to see it once.
Yeah.
But we were both really drunk. I don't know. Keith got to
that.
see me real mad because of what he did in my car. You'll never live that down for the rest of your life.
I'm fine with that.
It's okay.
And it's not because
I
was drunk either.
No, you weren't. None of us were. We were all sober. But, tuna casserole is just a thing that you and I can always laugh about. One, because our spouses do not like tuna casserole, but Keith and I will cook it because it's something we can cook and we enjoy.
Yep.
So, but just don't throw it up in my car.
Well, we were in a drive-through to, I think it's Dairy Queen or
Yes.
somewhere like that, and she said something to the lady, and then I was jokingly yelling, wait, and then I took a drink of water, and then something made me laugh, and then I choked on the water, and I was sitting there coughing, and then I just threw up.
And it smelled like tuna casserole
Yeah,
in my car
so I was
for a while. And I could not eat my ice cream, so you guys got to
I got
live
double
off
the
that.
ice cream.
But in college, you and I had good times. Even though you are Chris's close friend, you've known him since kindergarten, you and I got to hang out and enjoy shows together, like The Hills. We did. We watched The Hills. He's going to blush because I did not watch
I
that.
can edit this out. You know that, right?
I know you can edit that out, but I'm not going to let you.
I mean, the girls on the show.
That's what it was. And I'm going to defend you on that because it was the girls on the show. Because he'll be like, well, what's The Hills for that girl? Like, it was always about the girls on the show. It wasn't about the drama, any of that.
Drama. Screw
the
that.
drama on there was a lot. But speaking of drama, there's something else you and I enjoy.
Not drama.
Not drama, but it's a TV show.
Oh, One Tree Hill?
Yes. One Tree Hill.
I never finished it though. Like
you never finished it?
After Lucas and Peyton left the show, I wasn't into it as much.
It's very hard to get past that, but if you get past it and you get into like the ending episodes, the way they end the series is perfection. Like they wrap it all up with a clean little bow. Whereas you watch Sopranos, right?
Right.
Okay. Sopranos, how they ended it, I felt like, what the hell? Like, where are they going with this? Sons of Anarchy, the same thing.
I'm almost done with it.
Okay, you're going to see. I've not watched Game of Thrones because I think I mentioned this, Marie. Every time I would walk down and Chris is watching it, I'm like, that is a lot of sex. And I used to watch Sex in the City, okay?
And for those that aren't watching, you actually can't see it.
You can't see it, so I'm pointing it out.
I have tons of Game of Thrones stuff in here.
Tons. Yes. But I mean, that's fine because she is a very attractive lady. Is it the mother of dragons?
Several posters and then some paintings that are kind of rare of Khaleesi or Daenerys Targaryen, who is also...
So since we like TV shows, aren't they coming out with...
House of Targaryen.
Thank you. But there's another one with the snow. something.
Is there?
Yes, they just announced it, and I was going to ask you tonight about it because they just announced it. They're coming out with a series with the snow. It's gonna. I think it's just gonna be called Snow.
What about this? Like how the White Walkers first came about?
Yes, but it's the guy that was killed off.
Jon Snow?
Yes, it's gonna be his story.
He wasn't killed off.
Well, I don't know.
I mean, he died, but then came back.
I didn't know that. I just saw the part where he died. I'm telling you, I didn't watch with Chris. I do watch Yellowstone, though, because I'm addicted to Yellowstone. Oh, yeah. They had that on downstairs, and I was so like, good. Don't ruin it for Hunter, because Hunter's like, I haven't finished. I'm like, oh, sorry.
Well, that's where we were trying to catch him up.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Season 2, I think.
And Marie and I were talking that down by your favorite, I shouldn't say favorite, but by the Bean, because you like going there. Mm-hmm. There's that Lee's Boutique. There's Dutton shirts in there, and there's Beth Dutton shirts in there. There's a few that I was like, I kind of want this shirt, but I'm not like her. Like, I don't know.
I do wear it.
I know. I do have that side of me. I'm sure Chris can tell you.
I mean, I have some Yellowstone shirts, but it just says like Yellowstone on it.
Yeah. I need to get Chris one. One said I stand with the Duttons, and it had like a bison and stuff in the Yellowstone.
Hey, I bought a cowboy hat because of that show.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Do you wear it?
No, I took it down to Oklahoma and wore it once, and haven't worn it since. Like, we don't go out anywhere where that would justify me wearing a cowboy hat.
Well, we're in Kansas City. There's not many places to go except Power and Light District, and I feel like at my age, I'm just a little too.
You could on hot country nights wear it.
I want to go to hot country nights.
It's too hot right now.
It is, but I want to go.
I go there. 50,
we should
50.
drag Marie and Chris to it. What do you think? You think they go?
The thing about that is there's a lot of early 20-something girls that dress in short skirts, and
Chris can look at that. He ain't gonna be looking at me.
That's why I liked it. It used to be for the music. Now it's just for the scenery.
And Chris can go look at the scenery because I know he's stuck with me. That poor kid's been stuck with me since senior in high school. But you've known Chris longer than I have. Yeah, so
the last time Marie and I went there, we're like, God, we're too old for this. Like it was before COVID, and everybody was. It was just wall to wall people. It was hot out, and it was hard to get. It's like, I don't know if we're gonna go back. I used to go there all the time when I was younger.
Yeah.
Earlier 20s, but now it's like not my thing anymore. Like big crowds, a bunch of people just there to get drunk.
That was the last time I was down there for the Backstreet Boys concert. I was actually wearing the shirt. I just thought about that. I was down there for the Backstreet Boys concert, and it was before COVID. It was the 2019, before all that happened. And I think it was actually still the Sprint Center. So I was down there, and it was really hard to maneuver anything, get around anywhere. And I remember Nicole and I just being like, okay, where do we go from here? And then Chris had to drive down there, which was not. And I was very toasted, which, as you know, I get easily drunk quickly. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm really glad you wanted to do the podcast because I wanted to try out this microphone.
Okay.
I got it on an Amazon Prime deal.
I know. And I get off topic of like, I want your expertise on podcasting.
And she says I'm an expert. No way. I'm still learning this. Like,
okay.
Yes, I have some equipment, but
still,
we're not that. We're 31 episodes in. We're not that good. I'm learning.
I consider you a pro, considering Chris and I spent like a good 10, 15 minutes trying to figure out how to do an intro for my podcast. And I'm like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know what I'm doing. And I wanted it very simple because the Peachy Sunflower name came because of you. Because Keith's like, well, what do you name it? I was like, I don't know. I want a mix of Georgia. I want a mix of Kansas because I grew up and was raised in Georgia. So when you hear certain words out of my mouth, you can hear that Southern twang.
I've never heard it, but
you haven't? Chris calls me out all the time on it. Some people say it when I'm at school or stuff. But then I moved here, so I feel like I'm equal to kind of both. Like someone calls me a Kansas transplant, which is fine to me. So I was like, my favorite fruit is peaches. And then you're like, sunflowers are Kansas. So I think it was like peachy sunflower. And it was, and my tagline has always been like, just stay peachy, which is kind of means like, just be true to yourself. Try to find your own happiness because everyone's not gonna have the same things that they're happy about. Disney makes me extremely happy, but it can make other people really annoyed and pissed off. I love Harry Potter, but other people are like, oh my goodness, shush up about Harry Potter. So that's why, I mean, the name just fit. And it was all because I was like, Keith, I want to do a podcast on it. He's like, well, what's your name? That's where you got to start first. I'm like, oh no, I got to come up with a name. And I am the most indecisive person ever.
No, I don't know. I'm pretty indecisive. Like when I do a thumbnail for my YouTube videos, I'll take a bunch of, like, if I'm doing like a microphone review, I'll take a bunch of different pictures, and I'm sitting there, I can't decide, so I'm having like Marie and Hunter trying to decide. They're like, it looks the same. I'm like, no, but the lighting's slightly different. Like, look at the angle. Like, which one looks best?
It kind of reminds me when I'm taking your nice photos. I'm like, I'm gonna take a photo so I can be like, this is my next guest. And I'm like, Keith, I bored you out. We got to take another one. Oh, I hope I didn't do that with Marie. I'm gonna have to go take another photo. Chris is like, when I'm taking him, he's like, we do not need more than 5 photos. I'm like, but then there's different angles.
Exactly.
And different stuff. And he's like, how full is your phone? I'm like, well, there's like 12,000 photos on there. And he goes, and you couldn't narrow it down. There's 12,000 photos. And if you go through, because I go through once a month, if you go through, about 300 of those are screenshots, because I'm the weirdo that when I see something I like, I screenshot everything. Or like if I paste something, I screenshot it. And Chris is like, you get a confirmation email or it's going to go through on the account. Do you really need to screenshot that? Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And he's like, that is called OCD. And I'm like, So, which I think actually that's why you and I get on too, is because Keith and I are extremely clean people. My husband, it drives him crazy. I know he's probably said something to you about it because it drives him nuts.
Actually, he doesn't complain about it.
He doesn't really. Well, probably not, because I pick up after him like he's one of my children. You know, that's one thing. Like when he was in the military, he was very much
well, you kind of have to
organized. He kind of had to be. He didn't have a choice. But like, I don't understand how you go from when you get out of the like while you're in the military, you put your dirty clothes in the hamper. So when you get out, you drop it by the hamper. So why can't you just put it back in the hamper like you used to do? That's my only complaint about him. Well, that and his dirty garage, but you witnessed that. Him and his garage friends.
Tried to be like, bro, sell some of these car parts. Like, when are you going to use them?
He can open his own shop with the car parts he has.
I've tried to convince him too, and it's like,
which I appreciate, because
no, I guess if I'm not a car guy, and I mean I know the basics, but I don't like rebuild engines or anything like he does. And apparently and I've talked to like some other people, and they're like, people that are mechanics, you would think the garages are really clean, but most of them they're just a mess.
Yeah, and
but they know where everything is. Like they have a certain spot. They're like, oh, this part is for this car for whatever. Like I could, clean it. And like, to us, it looks like what the fuck?
Yeah.
But, yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. Because when I go to clean the garage, I'll put something somewhere, and he'll be like, "Where the heck is my stuff?" And I'm like, "I moved it here." "Why'd you move it here?" I'm like, "Well, the kids have one bottom shelf for their chalk and their other stuff, and I was trying to get their stuff to where it belongs, and you have stuff everywhere." But bless my husband, I just think he just has a lot of hobbies.
He does.
Like, he likes golfing. He likes disc golfing. He likes playing basketball. He does cars. He likes boats. He shoots guns. He likes to go fishing. He likes to do the podcast. I have never met somebody with more hobbies than I'm telling you.
Basketball just recently got started.
The basketball was because someone called him out, and they're like, he's like, "I can't believe they don't think I can play." And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. So if you check out our podcast, we mentioned that. It's a whole competition with that.
Well, and he's like, now we have to go disc golf. And I'm like, you're going to get beat at disc golf. I did not say he was going to get beat at basketball, because I think everyone underestimated it and forgot that he can play, because he was supposed to play in high school, but then hurt his leg. He was doing football, broke his leg, went out for basketball. A guy landed on that same ankle that had just healed, and he had to go back to the doctor and get it fixed. So he didn't get to play high school basketball.
Well, why we all kind of underestimated Chris is because when this all got brought up, there were 5 guys, and we were running an Airbnb in Nashville.
Yeah.
And we were watching, for some reason, Grown Ups.
That's a good movie.
And at the end, they're doing the basketball tournament between all the old guys, right? Mm-hmm. And somebody, I think it was Alan, was brought up, or Joe, was like, out of all of us, who do you think is the best basketball player? Immediately,
Joe
your husband was like, me.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure he did.
2 minutes prior to that, he got up to go to the kitchen and was like, oh, my knees hurt so bad. And he was like, he looked like an old man. But as soon as somebody asked him that, and he's like me, and we're like, yeah, right, really? And he's like, he got up like his knees never hurt.
Oh yeah, adrenaline.
I'm like, dude, you were just hobbling to the kitchen. Now you want to go play a game of basketball. So that's why. And then I'm like, I haven't played basketball in forever, so I'm not very competitive. Your husband's very competitive, and I'm like, I don't care. But Hunter, it was the youngest he's about 7 years younger than we are, and we're like he's and he's taller than most of us, so he's like. Joe's like, oh, I bet Hunter would beat you. And Chris is like, no.
Joe's an instigator. Joe Hardigan, I love you. Well, I've learned to love you, as you know. But my goodness, you're an instigator.
But then I kind of was instigating
I'm sure you didn't help too.
Well, Chris is super confident right now. Like, I don't know.
But I can give Joe crap because him and I have always gone back and forth.
And so, yeah. And so we ended up on our podcast. We brought that up. Your husband was trying to find a place to go play that night, like right then and there. It was like 10:30 at night. Everything was closed. So we talked about it on one of the podcasts afterwards, and then I'm like, all right, we need to make this happen. Stop talking about it. We got to make this happen. And it did happen. Yeah. Your husband was like, I'm going to beat Hunter 11-5.
And it was 11-4.
And Hunter's like, no. He beat him at 11-4.
And the thing is, the night before, he was like, I'm like, do you need to go shoot hoops with me? I used to play basketball, so, like, it's nothing to me. Do you need to shoot hoops with me? Like, yeah, you're going to be taller than I am, and you can jump shot better, but I have a really good shot. So I actually, fun fact, I used to beat Chris at horse and stuff when we lived in San Diego, and we had a miniature little basketball goal, so you guys can give him crap about that. I used to beat him at games. He'll say, no, she didn't. Oh, all the time. Because I used to text my dad, be like, just beat Chris at this.
Now, he beat him 11-4. However,
the backboard.
Your husband also had just as many air balls as points as he scored.
Absolutely. I'm sure he did. Well, also, though.
It took forever for them to actually,
score.
Like, it was every bit of 30 minutes. If not more. We're like, God, all right, wrap this up. And you could tell they were winded. I mean, none of us had played basketball in, years.
Yeah.
And just to go into it. And, yeah, Alan and I were watching, and we're like, airball. Yeah. Oh, one finally went in. Airball.
Now, when they were playing, because he played Nathan the night before, I noticed Chris does not use the backboard much. Whereas, does Hunter go off the backboard? Like, he relies on the backboard?
I mean, they were trying to, but...
Okay. But you guys were playing it at the elementary school. Yeah. And those elementary school goals are horrible.
Yeah, they're not the best.
You guys need to go find somewhere else.
And that was Hunter's excuse.
I also think, instead of playing one-on-one... I think you guys should try playing horse. Tell Chris to play horse. And I know he's probably going to be like, Kat, really? You got to call me out? Like, just see. Because with one-on-one, he can get competitive and really, really good. But if you do horse and be like, hey, you got to shoot it from here, here, and here. He's like, oh, crap.
I don't know. Because they both had terrible shots.
Yeah.
Your husband only won because he could, in his words, back down Hunter. Because he's like
a big dude.
He's got more weight on Hunter, so he does. He just kind of backed his way to the goal.
He used to be tiny, though. He used to be tiny.
We all used to be tiny.
Well, yeah, I can't say anything. I used to be tiny. I used to work for Disney, and people are like, "You never worked for Disney?" Well, I'm like, "Yeah, I did. Blank amount of weight ago." Also, the fun thing, you'll get a laugh out of this because I think you just learned this about me is that I have tattoos, and you didn't even know that. You're like, I didn't know you had tattoos.
Well, I didn't know you had that big one on your back.
I have two. I have that big one on my back and one on the side. And everyone looks at me and is like, well, you work for Disney. You don't have tattoos. No, guys, I have tattoos. They're just hidden.
My indecisiveness gets to me, and I'm like, I don't know what I want. I don't know where I want it. When I think I know what I want and where I want, I'm like, well, because it's like on you forever.
Yeah. Well, and that's what mine are, where they're covered, because I think if I did have one that would be shown, I would be like you, like, why did I? No. And that's why Chris, when he says I want sleeves, I'm like, no.
Because he never knows what job he's going to get. And a lot of them will see that.
And then it's also like, how are you going to decide what you want on what arm? Like, this is different. Like, he has his chest and his koi and all that. But, did I hear a timer? I know I keep thinking of food.
I didn't hear it.
Your wife is an amazing cook.
I wanted to get a tribal band back when I was younger because that was in style then. I'm so glad I didn't do that.
Yeah, I know. Well, because I was into Spice Girls and Sporty Spice had that one. I was like, I'm going to get one like that. I'm like, I'm so glad I never did that.
No.
ever.
I will tell you, if you do get into this and you want to keep going.
Yes, please.
Best
advice.
So one of these.
Okay, what is that called?
It's called the Rodecaster Pro.
Okay, Rodecaster Pro.
And when you start, so the worker bee, and that's why you had to get the Zoom pod track, because the worker bee is an XLR. So there's XLR and USB. USB you can just plug in your computer and record.
Okay.
Anything XLR, like what these are, you have to have an audio interface to put them into and then hook it up to your computer. But it's awesome, and it because the buttons are a lot bigger, and like on Chris's thing, it's really small. His is meant to be like if you have to go record somewhere off site or something.
And I think he got that for me because one, I was just starting out, and two, I'm gonna take it with me when I go on vacation.
Well, he's like, we talked about it, and he's like, I don't know how long she's gonna stick with this, so he didn't want to go full on with this, just in case he didn't like it, but which is fine. And
I'm hoping I stick it out. I've already recorded 3. I feel like as long as I keep getting guests with me, I think I'll be fine. I think the only thing that I did to myself that I wasn't thinking about when I started, I wrote this whole list of like, I want to change out guest hosts, whereas you are consistent. Like it's you, Chris, and Hunter, or it's you and Hunter, or you and Chris, or whatever the combo is, that you guys always have the 3 of you, or at least the 2 of you, and that it's consistent. Whereas I was like, did I bite myself with not having a consistency?
You could have a repeat guest.
And it will be Chris, because I'm going to push him because he lives with me.
Right. And like I watch podcasts
Mason
all the time.
and Ryder want to do one, which I'm like, I tried to record one with you and it was 7 minutes long. I don't think this is going to work, friends.
Yeah.
But children are crazy.
From the research I did is you have to stay consistent. Like with us, we record every Wednesday. It's between 7 and 7:30, and it goes live Fridays at 8 a.m. But you have to stay in that groove, because if you get out of it, then it's like, oh, well, let's not do one this week. Let's do one next week. Well, next week comes around. Maybe I don't feel like it. So you got to just stay consistent, and it just builds up.
So we were talking about that before, and I've decided, he's like, you got to choose of when you want to record. And I said, I want to record on Saturdays, because I feel with Saturdays, somebody can be available because it's the weekend and you're not in your work week. And I can get with somebody on a Saturday. I can grab my mom, my brother. I can grab you. Somebody is going to be available on a Saturday. And I'm going to have different hosts. I'm going to keep consistent people. So I decided Saturday I want to do it. And I think it's going to take me and Chris longer to edit, because you're like Speedy Gonzalez with it and you got it down.
Only because I've been doing it.
Right. I feel like I told him I'd really like the launch to be on a Monday, like that motivation Monday, that just to start off the week of a Monday. And that way it gives that. And I'm hoping we can get that down of like record on a Saturday, have it out Monday morning.
You have to, because what I found out is, because they're like, well, let's record on Thursday. I'm like, if we go out on Friday, I have to have time to edit, which we don't really do editing, but I have to
match up the levels.
Like if there's any B-roll I have to throw in, I'll throw in some B-roll. With this program, eCam Live, I don't have to match anything up now. It's nice. Okay. Or I'll have to add in, picture that we're talking about, and I forgot to preload it. I preload everything in this program now, so little editing. But
so if I would have been like, hey Keith, show a picture of us during college, we could have just thrown it in.
If you sent it to me before, I could have loaded it in here.
Okay, so that's good to know for next time, of like when we're talking about like another expertise you have, of like, hey Keith, show yourself with like another expertise you have. Which I didn't even ask. What would you consider? I know you don't like to be called expert on stuff, but like, what would you consider you're an expert on? Like, you feel comfortable giving advice on it. Marie's she's comfortable giving cooking, because obviously she taught me really well, as Chris has been like bragging about it. So like, what would you consider your expertise?
What do they call it when you know a little bit about everything, but you're not an expert? Like,
I don't know, because it's not an amateur, because
you know
stuff.
And then expert none, but something else. I forgot what it is.
Okay.
I kind of dabble in a little bit of everything. Like,
that's not a conventional list.
I forgot what it is.
I don't know.
But and Chris will tell you this, and so will Marie. If I get into something, I get into it 100%. Like, I don't half-ass anything. Like when I knew I wanted to do the podcast and this YouTube channel, I'm like, yes, I could have used my phone and just done with that, but I'm like, no, like I want to make good quality stuff. So I did a ton of research on how to edit, and that's the only reason I've gotten somewhat good, and I'm still learning. And it's just doing the research and committing to it. And that's why I started my second channel, because I like talking about firearms on that channel, but I found myself liking microphones a lot more. So I want to do like the second channel is more on like gear review, and I'm going to eventually do like how to get into podcasting in several different ways. Like, hey, if you have like $100, here's a microphone that'll plug right in your computer. There you go. Or I'll eventually do a studio tour. So I kind of find myself liking the production side of stuff now.
Okay. So then as we wrap it up, because I was like checking time, and I'm starting to smell the food.
Yep.
And we're cooking Italian, so.
Okay. Well, we're not.
Well, we're not. Marie is, and she's trying to teach me, and I'm up here playing around podcasts, which she's fine with. But okay, so for someone like me that wants to start out, I've already got my microphone, which is the Worker Bee. Mm-hmm. And what one does Chris use again?
So Chris has a Samsung Q2U.
Okay.
Well,
now
I sold him one of those, but he also has that Blue Yeti.
Okay, but I don't think he used that on the last. Well, we used the Worker Bee together when we did it.
And that's a bad idea.
Yeah, bad idea. We did learn that from you, so thank you for that.
Two types of microphones. So we're using right now dynamic mics. She actually, if you don't know, is using the Joe Rogan microphone.
And guess what? With you, I have not touched this at all, but I think with Marie, I was like, hey, how you doing?
Yeah, it's fine.
And I was pulling I was pulling a hunter. I did say it. I was like, hey, I was hitting that mic a few times.
Always going like this.
Which is fine. I get it.
If you need to know the difference between the microphones and which would suit your needs and your kind of sound treatment. Like I have a bunch of stuff in here. We have carpet, so we can use condenser microphones. Hunter uses a condenser mic because that picks up you, but it also picks up a lot of stuff around you. Whereas these pick up just what's in front of you. So you get that also podcasty sound, but it doesn't pick up stuff around. So the problem with the dynamic mics is most of them are XLR, so you have to have an audio interface, which is an extra thing. But so that Worker Bee you have XLR only, have to have an interface like you guys bought. But if you don't have the budget for that, the Samsung Q2U, and I've done a couple videos, but I want to do one that just starting out on. It's $70. And it's both XLR and USB capable, so you can plug it into your computer, or if you buy an audio interface, you can use that on that too. And it comes with a mic stand, both cables, and you just have to plug it in your computer and go. It's a dynamic microphone too, so it has that dynamic kind of podcasty voice sound to it. It doesn't pick up a bunch of stuff around you. So if you're looking to just start out, I highly recommend that. It's just one microphone is $70. You get everything you need, and you can grow with it once you get an interface.
All right, perfect. Now, there's a secret number, and I always forget it. You said if someone makes it past a certain episode, that usually they continue with it. So I got to make it past 7 episodes, which is fine, because remember I was writing a list, and we're good. And then, we're going to get there.
Like you're just figuring stuff out now. You'll get into a groove, and then you'll... Like I'm still asking like buddies and everybody that listens to it for feedback. I'm like, what do you like? What do you don't like? And what I found is people like consistency, like having certain topics that you talk about each week. So that's why we do a whiskey of the week, because they like that. And he's like, oh, well, if you guys did a gun of the week, that'd be kind of cool too. And he's like, I like the fact that whoever you have on, you ask about their background on stuff. So you'll figure it out.
So I think as I keep going, like I feel more comfortable as I'm like talking with you and Chris and then Marie. Like I think I'm gotten good of like, what is your expertise? So like I wanted to talk to you about podcasting, and then we're giving the tips. So I think that's like, as long as I stick to like what you're good at, and I don't know anything about that, or I do know, then that will be helpful. What is the maximum of people you would have on a podcast? Because you guys have done 4.
That's for us.
Yeah.
That's the most. Because one, this only has 4 mic inputs.
Okay.
And that's like the max we can fit around this table. So 4 is the max. And then 4, and then even more, you just have people talking over each other.
Sure.
We find that a little bit with the 4, but we've most people are kind of good to where we kind of let the next person talk. So there's not much of that. But when you're telling stories and you have 4 people on, somebody, a couple people might want to jump in and say something. So it's kind of hard for everybody. So 4 would be the max I'd have on a podcast.
So as we wrap it up, I'm going to have to ask, maybe I'll just steal one of your guests. Who's been your favorite guest to have on? I know who I have listened to and who has been my favorite. And it's just, I'm not going to say I wasn't expecting it, but I think I enjoyed that podcast the most and was giggling and having fun with it. And I was like, please bring him back. Please bring him back.
I got a lot of good feedback on my dad.
Your dad knocked out of the park. Like, I loved Mr. Joe White. If you ever listen to mine, or Keith's going to have to tell you, please come back on his. Or I might just tell your dad, like, you are amazing. Can you just come on mine and tell stories of Chris and Keith to me?
He's a very personable person, and he is so easy to talk. And he, like your husband, like he's awesome because he's very committed, shows up every week. Like, he's very reliable, but he talks quiet.
What are we talking about? No, he is. He's a quiet person.
He talks quiet. My dad, though,
and the
on
loud
the other hand, so I got to always boost up his levels. My dad, if you see that episode, he was pretty loud, and like I kept forgetting to turn it down, and he's got that just a loud carrying voice, which is nice. But I got a lot of good feedback on the one.
Okay, so was that your favorite
so far? Yeah. I think so.
All right.
Well, wait, no, my wife was my favorite.
Well, your wife.
That's what I'm supposed to say, right?
I'm gonna say your wife is my favorite already. I already told her when we were walking out. I'm like, I'm gonna do these with just you, Chris and I have been together so long. I think we can kind of predict of what the other one's gonna say. So if like you're listening to us, you're gonna be like, man, they like. So maybe I'll have to start a bet and fight with him or something. Because I have that deep down in me.
Right. There's one 2 YouTube channels that really got me into this. And one of them is his husband and wife do it.
Oh,
they call it the couples table, and it's awesome. I learned a lot from his channel, but it's like they're newlyweds. So maybe that's why.
Yeah.
But they just talk back. They sit at a table and just talk. It's really cool. But anyway.
But Nathan and Chris, and I love you both, but if you've noticed about them, they've been taught, like, in public or on something, never to badmouth anotody or, like, be very respectful, which you guys, if you get to know those 2, trust me, they have stuff to say.
We'll talk crap. Hunter and I will try and talk crap, and Chris doesn't give it back on the podcast.
And I keep telling him he needs to, because I feel like it gets to where it's like, Chris, you need to come back with it because it's okay to do so. Like, you do it in the garage. What's the difference of the podcast in here?
He sometimes does it in the garage. Your husband's not a big trash talker unless it comes to sports and I'm going to beat you or whatever.
Well, I also listen. I live with him, so he'll talk at home, trash talk.
But no, he won't like that. But Hunter and I are like, people like a little bit of trash talk between each other. And so Hunter and I will go back and forth.
I should have brought Hunter up here with us so all 3 of us could trash talk. I can do that.
Something to Chris, and he's just like, haha.
Which I'm not. Marie was explaining, like, I am very nice. I don't want to piss off people. I am like a people pleaser. I don't like confrontation, but I do like some trash talking here and there. Mm-hmm. So
a lot of people like that.
All right, I'm getting hungry. I bet you are too. So Keith, I just want to thank you for coming on the Peachy Sunflower, talking about podcasting with me, being an amazing co-host. I guess I say co-host, right?
Guest. I'm a guest.
You're a guest. I'm the host. You're a guest.
You're the host.
Okay.
I'm the guest.
Will you please come back on again? Because I think we have so much more to talk about.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you guys, I sign off with I'll let you say something. Bye, and then I'll sign off.
Yeah. Just if you're interested in our podcast, check out the Workbench After Hours. It's over on the Boomstick Tactical LLC channel, and then also Shotgun Studios, where I'm going to be doing all. So like and subscribe to his stuff, like and subscribe to Peachy Sunflower, and continue to look out for more episodes. So again, thank you, Keith, and as always, have a peachy life.